Hey everybody, how are you? And good evening. Man, we've got people all from all over the place here. I appreciate everybody posting where they're from. That's very nice. I saw two people from New Zealand and a lot of people all over the U.S. here. So very cool. Thanks for posting where everyone's from. Hey, I want to thank everybody for spending the next hour with us. This is Rick, and I'll be hosting tonight's webcast. So I certainly want to, again, thank everyone for spending the next hour with us on this, Sunday, September 15th, 2019. So thank you. Thanks, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Montreal. Way to go, Toronto. Very cool. Thank you, everyone. Hey, Gwen, how are you? Yeah, doing good here. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll tell you, it's going to be a crazy week. It's going to be crazy. So we're just going to kind of look at charts and just talk about some things, and I've got some charts I kind of like, and of course we'll take a look at things you guys might like as well. If you want to post them out there when the time comes. Let's start with a little bit here. I've got the SPY up, and whoops. Well, I hope my mouse doesn't quit. We've kind of come up here to this top, this 300, 301 area, and we might be getting a little toppy. We might want to break through. I guess everyone's heard the news, so some oil capacity has been cut back a little bit, and I mean it was crazy stuff. So the market is going to be a little bit. It's going to be wild, and it may be really fast. One thing I want to remind everybody of is this is an event. This is a news event. So people that are on top of the news, or you've heard the news, and you're gonna catch a big ball tomorrow. Just remember that crude oil's, I don't know, maybe 15 to 25% up tomorrow. 15 to 20%, something like that. So if you think you're going to catch a big ball, you may. But just remember that this news event, it's just a news event, and we want to be careful not to chase too much. Day traders are probably going to have a great time tomorrow. If you're a day trader, you're probably going to have a great time. If you're not a day trader, don't change overnight. Don't say, hey, I've been a swing trader. Tomorrow I'm going to day trade and catch that big ball. I don't know that I would do that. But day traders are probably going to have a heyday. Outside of that, I think the best thing to do is look for those chart setups that you always look for. Trade those setups. And we're going to take a look at some of those. Okay, so anyway, back to the SPY here. SPY's kind of reached this little top. And I say top only because we stopped in here Friday. Nothing says that this has to be a top. We could certainly continue, probably something tomorrow consolidation-wise, and we could break right out and just move much higher here. So I don't mean to say that we're at some kind of a top right here. Now, one thing I would like to say is on this T2122 chart, which is the 4-week new high, new low ratio, we've been pegged up here for a little bit, and now we're kind of rolling over here. So we could easily, put a bounce in. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, there we go. We could easily put a little bounce and then come down further. We could just go sideways, up and, back up like that. So what we're going to have to do is kind of watch how the overall market sort of handles everything. I always maintain, too, that 80 to 85% of the stocks follow what the S&P 500 does. And we should just simply trade what we're comfortable with. Don't try to trade something we're not comfortable with. Again, what I'm trying to suggest is be careful if you're going to go out and try to catch that big long shot tomorrow. crude oil popping up, which I think it is. Lot of emotions are running high in the big world, I guess. So be a little careful. Just be a little careful. I've got a couple PMs already asking me about that, so I just wanted to mention that. Let's see. I've got a question here, Rick. Why your extreme lines T20 and 22 are different than Doug? Because they're movable. You can put them wherever you want to move them. Here, tell you what. I'll put them at 100. How's that? The top one, and I'll put this one at $5. These are just lines. You can put them wherever your little heart desires. Wherever your little heart desires. If you take a look at the chart, though, you can see where it pegs out. So you probably want it close to that area. Is the exact top the right place? Different traders, different strokes. How about down to the T-line? The highest point in the T-line? Oh, wait. There you go. Highest point in the T-line, where do you adjust it to? So it's totally, in fact, here, let's take them off. What do you need them for? Just look where we've been. Look what we're doing. That's all we have to do. Oswald, if you use TC2000, you can type in T2122 just like you might type in the SPY, SPY, or diamonds. Just type in diamonds if you're using TC2000. If you use something else, I'm afraid I can't help you. I just don't know the answer to that. On this chart here, these are the T-line bands members for those that's going to hang around and be here Tuesday night. Tuesday night, I will also be hosting for a members webinar, and we are going to be talking a little bit more on the T-line bands. So, members, if you're not doing anything, we'll see you Tuesday night. Okay, let's take a look at a few things. And while I'm on the Dow here, or diamonds, let's do that. Man, my mouse is kind of choppy. Kind of weird. Okay, so the diamonds, I am holding some diamond puts, by the way. There are a few members that in the Hit and Run Candlesticks trading room that put together some diamond puts and kind of talked me into it, which is cool. And so holding some diamond puts, that may be a nice choice to have had come tomorrow. So if we start to pull back, here we are at this top. If we start to pull back, what we want to look for is places where price has been before and has made multiple touches. So, hang on 1 second, if you will. 1 second, please. There we go. You probably heard me fumbling around. I put a new mouse in my battery. New battery in my mouse. Much better, much smoother now. There we go. Okay. So what we want to look at is where we've had touches. We like to see touches for support and resistance. That's where we get support and resistance, where there's multiple touches and pauses in the market, like right there. There's a nice 4 bar pause actually. The 4th bar kind of broke out, but definitely 3 bars paused right in there. So that would be the first area that I would look at if we start to break down. And then always, if we have a gap, that is always a place that we might start to break down. Keep in mind, though, we can pull back a little bit, and then the next thing you know, we can be up bullish and breaking out again. So I'm not being a crazy bearish person here. I'm really not. Just want to point out possibilities. Alrighty, let's look at VXX real quick, and then we're going to look at some charts. VXX has been in a downtrend, big time downtrend, pretty, just no bulls hanging around at all. Well, right now we're approaching some of those touches right in there, and that may start to produce some buying. I know there were several members in the Hit Run Candlesticks room last week that bought bought some VXX and they held over the weekend. That might pan out to be a good trade there. Way to go. So, alrighty, let's take a look. If Russell, if you don't mind, kind of hang on there, and I want to get through a couple, and then we'll certainly come back and we'll take a look at what you have there. Okay, thank you. Alrighty, here's a trade that I wrote down Friday as we were going into the close. I thought this PCG was a pretty nice looking chart. This is a pinball setup, actually. Pinball setup, for those that don't know, are basically charts coming off the bottom. And I don't like picking a bottom. I don't mind buying the bottom, and I'll explain that in a second. In other words, there's no way in the world I can pick and, pick that's the buy right there. Or even for that matter, well, let's just stay with that, I guess, for now. I don't know that that's going to be the bottom. But when we start to build that chart pattern in there, and then especially we have a bullish candlestick signal, I think that's a bonus. And we've pulled back and we've stayed above that candlestick signal. And then we tried to come back up Friday, making a pretty good chart pattern. Anyone familiar with candlestick patterns, you might be able to notice in this that if this candle was full, that candle was full, what I mean, like this one, you'd have a rising method here. And that's an impressive chart pattern when you have that. And what we're looking for is the breakout. Any buying can certainly be here with your stop, down at that level, down below those candles. So if you pick some up Friday, or maybe you're going to, you're looking at tomorrow, something like that. We look at the 200-day, the 34 EMA as the first target area. So PCG, I think, is looking pretty good for that watch list. Might want to add it to it. NVAX. I wanted to. Here's something to pinball setup. I'm going to go back to that PCG for a second. So PCG pinball setup is again basically that downtrend. We're looking for that kind of a relief rally, not any big reversal, just a relief rally. And here is a chart. I'm actually in this chart right now. Telray. I'm actually long Telray, and that's not it. There it is. And this is also a pinball setup that has rallied up to almost that 34, and then has pulled back for a J-hook, type chart pattern. And let's see, Johnny's at, why do I call it a pinball? Good question, and I'll share that with you. There is a story there. I will definitely share that with you. Let's see. Let's go back to PCG, just because I don't want to mess with my lines that I have up. So PCG, I'm going to put the 34 up here. There we go. 34 EMA. And the reason I call it the pinball setup is because years ago, and this goes back, well, I started about 31 years ago now trading. So about, 28 years ago, I guess, is when the pinball setup, 27 years ago maybe, when the pinball setup came around. And what would happen was I could find them. I could trade them, but I couldn't make any money. And here's what would happen. I mean, I like I said, I could find them, I could trade them. They would go up, and you know what I would do? I would hang on to them because I was greedy. Hey, this thing's in a run. I could go. Let it go. Make more money. Well, it would pull back, and I just wouldn't make any money. So what I would do is sell it, and I'll be darned if that thing didn't just go back up more times than not. And once again, I'm not a fast learner. I'm really not. I'm kind of dunce, actually. And dense, I guess. So it'd come back up. What do you think I would sell it? Do you think I would take my money? Nope. It'd come back down. You know, it's kind of like a pinball machine, isn't it? It's just you've got the paddles, pushing the paddles, and it just did this, and it took me a while before, hey, the light went off, and I said, well, you goofball Rick, why don't you take your money up here? Why not? And lo and behold, I did that one day, and it's like the light bulb went off. And that's exactly why I call it the pinball setup, because it like the flapper wheels on a pinball machine, pops it up, and the ball just kind of bounces around and pops it up again and bounces it around. That's exactly why I call it the pinball setup. Yep. So, thanks for asking. I haven't told that story in a long, long, long time. All right, so NVAX. I'll tell you what, we've got another one coming up, and we'll talk about that, okay, on how we will trade it. So NVAX, this is a rounded bottom breakout. Here's a rounded bottom breakout. Rounded bottom breakout, we want to be in a downtrend, much like the pinball setup. It's trading off the bottom, except we're trading above the 50-day simple, not necessarily below the 30. Well, in fact, we don't want price below the 34 unless it's rallied up and come back like this right here. We actually want the 34 to be over the 50. So here's a trade that I'm kind of liking. If you're into biotechs, I'm not huge into biotechs, but I know a lot of people might be. So some people aren't, some people are. But I, as far as the chart go, I think this is a pretty nice chart and doing a lot of things right. So here we have our downtrend, clear downtrend. We've had a nice breakout of the 50-day simple, a nice little pullback, and you can see that bottom being put in there. We've got if we broke this down inside, we've got a low to higher low, and now we're making a higher high. So what I'm looking for is this to travel up higher. Targets always start with those two moving averages. One's the dotted deuce, one's the 200 simple. That's the 200 simple right here. There are targets along the way that we'll also look at. Those aren't the two you should just be married to. Man, I'm having horrible mouse problems tonight, I'll tell you. Actually, I kind of like this area for the first one, target-wise. Second one, I'm going to put the target up here about 11. Actually, drop that down. There we go. About 11, or about 1350, something like that. And then we'll see if we can come up to the 200-day simple. So if we're looking at this rounded bottom breakout from down here at $6 and some change, the possible trade we're looking at is almost, this is insane, 200%. Now, I truly think that's insane. Maybe even a little unrealistic for most swing traders. I take that back. Probably unrealistic for about 99% of swing traders, to be more exact. But we can break this down to little moves, and right in here might be a place we want to look at as well. So if we look at this chart, if we were able to get an inside day buy over the next couple of days, inside day inside this candle, now we could be looking at a 17%. That's a little bit more realistic. And from there, we can manage this chart up a little bit, looking for those touches. That top right there might even be a nice little target area. Keep in mind when you're looking at biotech, sometimes the biotechs look wonderful going up. Remember, not everything goes up. And if it's big time going up, it can be big time going down. So pretty volatile. And this is one of these very, very volatile charts. Let's see, when you lose on a pinball setup, it is a till. There you That's right. Let's see, Rick, why use the 200 front weighted low? The best thing I can say to do is put it on your charts and stop trading for a month. Okay, so let me answer the second part of my statement first. Why stop trading for a month? So you can concentrate on it and you don't worry about entries and exits and managing your portfolio. And I'm being dead serious. I'm not joking around about that. Stop trading for a month. That way you can truly see how it works, okay? Now, the why I use it, because I studied moving averages in that area for a little over a year, looking for what I wanted, and I didn't know what I wanted when I started. I didn't know exactly what I wanted. I didn't know what the questions were just yet. And after I studied and studied and studied and went through charts after chart after chart after chart, I figured out that this was the one that worked. This is the one that I liked best of all. And so many times it acts as a magnet. And there's a lot of, the 100 simple comes close sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. I've just found that this 200 front weighted measured on the low works out. It just works out. And the only thing I can say, you can either take my word for it or stop trading for a while. And you have to stop trading. It won't do you any good to try to trade and study these. It won't do you any good at all because you're too busy trading and not busy enough learning about it. So there you go. I spend a lot of time looking at charts, more than you can possibly imagine. And I'll change and I'll put indicators on the chart, moving averages, look for different things, see if some of it is just BS or see if some of it actually works. And this is one of those that actually works. That's one thing that works. So thanks for asking. Let's see. I answered that. Is that an indicator? Steve, you make it. You can make it on any. It's just a moving average is all it is. You can build it. And yes, it is. It's on TC. I use TC 2000. You can build it on Thinkorswim. You can build it on, I would imagine, any program. Yep, just like the XMA. Yep. Are you using price action? The answer to that would be yes. Yes, the 200, the dotted right there, the dotted, I call it the dotted deuce because that's the deuce. Dotted deuce is the 200 front weighted measured on the low. So would you say that the RBB pattern starts building up, it will pause at the 200 front weighted low more times than you can possibly imagine? Yes. So let's kind of, we're going to run out of time. I'm an hour guy and that's about it. So XEC had one of our members here, and I have to tell you that there are people that do great chart work. This is one of them. This person here pointed this out to me tonight before we came on. I was sitting here looking at charts and making some notes, and this individual pointed this out to me tonight. And this is a nice chart. This is also an RBB setup. For those that don't know what an RBB setup, it's basically a chart in a downtrend that's reversing up and over the 50-day simple. Some things we like to look for is how did we get there? And we come back here, we might look at the chart pattern or a candlestick pattern, things like that. And I think this is a killer reversal chart pattern down here. And we've traveled up, broken through that 50-day simple. Watch for that inside day or that pullback, which I'm not sure we're going to get it on this chart tomorrow. But just because it's in that energy sector, and I suspect energy is going to be up tomorrow. So careful not to chase it. We may have to wait for it to come back, but the target areas that we like to look at are toward those two red lines up there. It doesn't mean that we should not take profits along the way. We absolutely should take profits along the way. This might be a nice little area to pull some profits off the table. And then as we cut through this line, assuming it cuts through that line, then we'll look at something about right in here. And then from there, we'll just manage and see what happens there. So another, let's see, rounded bottom breakout I was going to mention is URBN. And I'm only mentioning this because I was in this last week and sold it. And I thought I wrote down, kind of looking for it here now. There it is, 32%, almost 33%, 32.88% is what I ended up selling this for. So I was trading, I trade pretty much just options nowadays. It doesn't mean that the charts that we look at are only for options. They're not at all. You can trade a stock on any chart you want to trade on. I tend to trade the options because it's easier to make that 30%, 40%, 50%. When we're looking at the rounded bottom breakout, it doesn't take much to get up there at all and make that kind of money. So I just wanted to point out, we've looked at some RVBs, and I wanted to point out, here's one that I traded last week, closed it out, made some money on it, and now it's up high enough that I'll probably wait, well, not probably, I know I'll wait for a pullback, and if it gives me the buy signal, only if it gives me the buy signal and buy pattern, will I enter again and see if we can't move it up higher. I've skipped over a couple of things like the IVC long. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to get through what I have first, and then I'll open the doors for that. Okay. LB was a pinball setup that I sold recently, and that was a 25% gainer. A pinball setup, and this actually becomes, well, wrong one, Rick. Let's go this, and let's put the T line up here. There we go. How many people are familiar with the T line? Actually, I should say how many people are not familiar with the T line. So when this broke out of this black line right here, this is when this became a pinball setup for a buy, looking for that 34 as a target. I have sold mine and made a nice little profit on it. Like I said, 25%. I think most people here would like to make 25% in 3-4 days. I think that's pretty good little trade there. So, all right, let's AXSM. Here's a chart that's been running. Well, here, let's just look at the weekly. There we are. See how we gapped up and we've been moving in a trend? And then we started getting sideways here. We've got this series of dojis, and then we have a bullish candle. Again, I'm looking at the weekly. We'll go to the daily in just a second. We've got this bullish candle on the weekly that shows that the indecision here may be over, and maybe the decision has been made. So here's the daily, and what I'm looking at is if we take, I'm going to just put a line at this top right here. So what I'm looking for here is if we start to break out, that's the trade I would be looking for. I'm not looking for a trade necessarily down here. What I would be looking for is a breakout and consolidation. So we've been up 1, 2, 3 days, 4 days Friday. This is not the day to be buying at all, in my opinion. Great day, bad day to be buying. So what I would look for is follow through and then test, and then we can start looking for some buys right here. Took me forever to understand the statement when it was first made to me. Pay higher for it. Pay higher for it. That goes against everything a trader could possibly think about. We've been taught to buy low and sell high. I mean, pay higher? Are you out of your ever-loving mind? I don't want to pay higher. I want to sell higher, right? True. Very true. But once it breaks out, this right here doesn't mean squat anymore. That anything right in here means nothing. This is history. You're not going to get that back. That's done. It's over. So what we're looking at is a whole new trade, and let's use this line here. I'm going to use these highs right there. We're going to use that as the new bottom. Now, anybody can clearly see that based on what we see, the chart we see in front of us, that's the bottom, right? On this pullback, there's the bottom right there. On this little pullback, there's the bottom. And you probably can't see too many of the candles. I've got them pretty tight, pretty small right now. Here's a pullback, and there's the bottom, right? Let's open this up. Well, let's just stay with that one. That was the most recent. That's clearly the bottom, right? Not necessarily. Let this chart break out and let it pop up and let it pull back. And guess what? Let's look for that bottom. The bottom doesn't mean always the bottom. It just means the bottom after a run. The bottom after a pop-up. That's all it means. So that's what I'd be looking for on this chart, is nice little breakout, little pullback. Here's another chart, WB. I like WB, and I do believe it is an RBB. Little pop out of the box forming right here. Still looks to me like it might be headed up to that 200-day simple. And if you can get a buy around 49.85, that's a nice little almost 10% move in the stock. An option would be quite a bit more on this. So, and here's a nice little pinball setup. If you want to take a look at a pinball setup, we've popped up. We went right up to the 50. It now became an RBB here, rounded bottom breakout. Nice little pullback, J hook, and we just took off after that RBB, went right up to the dotted deuce there, and there's the consolidation. I think this is a very nice chart. Anything below those lows, I probably wouldn't want to be a buyer until it's set up again. Let's see, this ABBV. This is another chart that I traded recently and sold it. Nice little pop up here. Now, I actually traded the pinball back here, not the RBB. Or wait a minute. No, I did. What I did is I ended up buying here. I ended up buying here, and I ended up selling as we came to the 50-day simple. Ended up with about 52%. That's what this chart was, right there. So I totally given this up, but I've made good money right in here. So watch that pinball setup, the rounded bottom breakout. They work. They really, really work. Let's look at some shorts real quick. McDonald's looks short. Anybody that... My favorite chart strategy of all time is the rounded bottom breakout. Not in all cases does this work out. But my favorite shorting strategy is the rounded top breakdown. Exactly the same chart pattern upside down. Chart patterns don't always work upside down. You might think, well, just take that chart pattern, turn it upside down. It doesn't always work out that way. In this particular case, and I don't mean this particular chart, I mean in this strategy. Exactly the RBB flipped over upside down is my favorite short strategy. And basically, nice long trend up, we start to break down below the 50-day simple moving average, and then I look for basic chart patterns along the way. Right now it looks to be like McDonald's. We put in this top, we gap down on some pretty nice volume right here, and now we've set up for what we call a bearish H pattern. Bearish H pattern is simply a chart that looks like an H, which is pretty much the exact opposite of a J hook. Pretty much opposite of a J hook. Shop. Here's another one set up very much the same way. Shop. So we start to see weakness on shop. That could start to lead us down to the dotted deuce and or the 200 simple. More than likely we'll have relief rallies along the way. You can see the top that formed up here with an evening star, bearish engulf as well, and then we followed through, and here's a failed top. We came down and we're making that bearish H pattern once again, which is pretty much the opposite of a bullish J hook pattern. The last chart I'm going to look at is Starbucks. It is also a short. I am currently short this. Was short last week, and you can see the 34 is starting to cave in below the 50-day simple. We've got a top up here, and I want to point out, point out this top right in here, and the fact that we could not get past that top, and then we popped up with a failed top, and then from there you can see that we've just climbed right down, putting in that bearish H pattern, and right now I'm still looking for something closer to the dotted deuce. Doesn't mean I'm going to hold it to that area, but we'll just manage it as it comes down. Our whole idea, the way I trade anyway, is base hits. I don't look for big home runs. I just look for base hits. 1 second.